As soon as you hire a new head football coach, the questions shift to who will be his assistants. Well, it looks like we've got our first hire from Coach Hugh Freeze. Let's talk about who this coach is, and I'll give you 10 facts to know about him. But before we do that, we always want to remind you to smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content. And as you're watching or listening today, be sure to leave a comment below in the comments section so it'll help enter you into our ongoing subscriber giveaway for a signed Auburn football prize package. And as always, we want to take the time to thank members of our booster club like Stan McCullers, who helped produce videos like this. So the very first hire that Hugh Freeze is going to make for his new staff appears to be Jeremy Garrett, one of his former coaches at Liberty. Now, I want to stress this. There has not been an official announcement from Auburn on this as of the editing of this video, so I can't technically say that this is official. However, there are several photos of him, Coach Freeze, and other assistants who will be staying from the previous staff already out on the recruiting trail in Auburn gear. I don't know what other confirmation you need. With that being said, let's jump right into getting to know Jeremy Garrett, your new Auburn defensive line coach, with 10 facts that you have to know about this guy. Let's start with fact number 1. You really need to start with what are we replacing to understand that. So the former defensive line coach, Jimmy Brumbaugh, was an Auburn guy, was a fan favorite. I think a lot of people were really disappointed to see him go. So that is going to be the person that he will be replacing. And in a certain sense, he kind of could be replacing Rock Bellatoni as well, who was an edge rusher position coach, which is technically a linebacker and a defensive lineman at the same time. It's going to be weird to see if they actually fill this position for just defensive line and edge rushers. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. However, I do want to stress that you go check out our last video that we did breaking down all of the firings that Coach Freeze did for the previous staff. It'll kind of bring you up to speed for this one too. That brings us to fact number 2, his coaching experience, which is usually one of the first things people want to know when they hear about a new assistant. He's got a total of 13 years experience, 9 of which were spent at the high school level, 2 were spent at the college level, and 2 were spent at the pro level as well. In fact, number 3, we're going to dive a little bit more into that coaching experience, specifically high school coaching experience, those 9 years that we already brought up. He spent time at South Haven High School as an assistant coach in 2010. From 2011 to 2017, he moved up to Tennessee to be part of Innsworth High School as a defensive coach. And then finally in 2018, he was promoted for 1 year to be a head coach at that same high school before he moved on to his next venture. Now, I know most of you aren't interested in that high school stuff, so we'll move on to fact number 4. College coaching experience, which he spent time at Vanderbilt for 1 year right out of his high school coaching experience to be a defensive analyst, one of those off the field positions that basically still gets involved with coaching but have different responsibilities, however you'd like to explain that. Now, we will talk about what happened the 2 years after that in just a second, but his other college coaching experience was at Liberty University, where Hugh Freeze comes from. You can start to see the connection building there, where he was a defensive line coach for him. In number 5, we'll jump back to those 2 years in between his college experience, where he spent time at the pro level with the Cleveland Browns as a defensive line assistant coach. There's going to be some things that we bring up in just a little bit about who's had an influence on him, but also who he's connected to and who he coached while he was with the Browns. In number 6, we're going to move away from that coaching experience stuff and talk about him playing a little ball himself and what type of experience he had there. Well, he actually spent his time, no shocker here, at Ole Miss as a defensive line player. It's all kind of coming full circle, isn't it? But he was there during 2004 to 2007, where he won several SEC academic honors, other individual team honors, was just an overall great athlete and guy while he was there. And he did get his first connection with Hugh Freeze, although he was a tight end coach at the time. Again, everything's coming full circle. Speaking of connections, we're going to talk about number 7 now, which would be people who had a big influence on him as a player and as a coach. As a player during his time at Ole Miss, that would have been David Cutcliffe, Ed Orgeron. You make your own assumptions about that. We've already addressed his connection with Hugh. But the biggest thing for me would be who had the biggest influence on him as a coach at the Cleveland Browns. His defensive coordinator would have been Chris Kiffin. You heard me right, the brother of Lane Kiffin, who may also be at this time in the running for a position here at Auburn defensive staff too. Again, you make your own assumptions with that. And number 8, we're going to talk about probably what's most interesting to some of the college players that had the potential to be coached by him. Who did you have an influence on at the pro level? Like, who were you known for? Well, at the Cleveland Browns, during his 2 years of defensive line coaching, they had pretty good defenses, but he also coached some pretty prominent players to pretty good success as well. You had Olivier Vernon, Myles Garrett, that's a big one. And there's this guy named Jadeveon Clowney too. It's a pretty good pedigree. Number 9, we're going to talk about regional ties, especially in terms of recruiting, because that's a big part of an assistant coach's job. We've talked about some of his history, and he has the most connections with the states of Tennessee and Mississippi, namely Mississippi because of his time where he spent at college, but that's where he's native to as well. So you can imagine the ties that he has there. And from Tennessee, from being an analyst at Vanderbilt and spending so much time at the high school level there, you can understand probably why he's going to be an asset to this assistant coaching staff, especially in these 2 states alone. And finally, number 10, probably the one thing that all fans are interested in. How are you doing currently? Well, at Liberty, as the defensive line coach for Coach Hugh Freeze, they had a pretty good defense. They were 3rd in the nation in total sacks, and all 3 of their leading sack getters were defensive linemen under his coaching. And if that wasn't enough for you, they led the nation in tackles for loss, 109 total. All that being said, you should be pretty happy with what we're getting under this guy. So that's my thoughts on your brand new defensive line coach, Jeremy Garrett. Would love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure to drop one down there. It'll help enter you into that subscriber giveaway, which you also be subscribed, so you need to make sure you've done that too. Smash the like button if you enjoyed this content, and check the links out in the description for ways that you can help support our content here at E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.